How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. So the Reds, 12-game heater. Now the Reds, 2-game losing streak, and we're hoping it stops right there. And it very could well have stopped yesterday. Could have stopped the day before. And you know what? There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk about saying the David Bell. David Bell's responsible for both of those losses. Now, a little dramatic. Could be. I'm trying to not blame everything on David Bell. The question is, does he deserve the blame? And the question is, at this point in time in David Bell's, I wouldn't say career twice, tenure with the Cincinnati Reds, is he the reason? Is he more responsible for the Cincinnati Reds' success right now and the way this offense is playing? Or is he more responsible for the Cincinnati Reds' downfall, as in he's costing them games because of the way he manages games? And to me, it's a really interesting debate and a really interesting conversation, because you start on the positive side. I think, at this point in time in his career, or in his coaching career, you do see, this is what's difficult for me, is you want to call him, say he can be a player's manager, he can instill confidence in the players, because you look at 2020, 2021, the energy, the excitement that baseball team had, Castellanos Winker. Castellanos said that was the most fun he had playing on a baseball team before. You look at it again this season, the Reds struggled to start the season. They started a tradition with the Viking, the Cape. You had all these young guys full of energy, full of excitement. He lets them celebrate. He lets them enjoy the game. And, that does reflect back on your manager in a big way. So you have to give him credit, I think, in that regard, to saying he is creating this loose clubhouse, this loose environment that has his players feeling good about themselves, which is important going up to the plate, playing with some confidence, playing a little loose out there. The flip side of that is, again, saying, what is working for him, I guess, is, it's, to me, the confidence thing, that it's difficult. It's like, seeing the other night, they pulled Joey Votto. The guy's been as clutch gets since returning to this Reds lineup. 3 home runs, all of them in big moments, tying the game or taking a lead. And he pulls him down after 1 at bat against the Braves, and they lose that game. We've seen Kevin Newman play a little longer than expected. We've seen Will Benson's been hitting the ball pretty well, taken out of the game. Situations like that, or guys get given the day off. Situations like that, you say, does that hurt the guy's confidence when they're hitting good? It's like, how do you feel when you get yanked out? Right now, it's not hurting the bats. So maybe that's an old thought of mine. It's like, these guys can play more games than this. They could. Again, Tampa Bay's been stellar, giving their guys rest, giving all their young guys rest, rotating these guys in and out, giving them a day off every here and there. And they've been playing stellar baseball. So, you gotta, I think that's the important thing as an armchair manager, which we all are. You have to kind of adapt with the times and not get stuck in your old ways. And I always say that's what I love about it. You want to know what a good manager is? That's my question. Like, what's your philosophy? And if he gives you a strict philosophy, not a fan. What I love about Zach Taylor is his always willing to change and adapt, and that's what you have to do to be a good manager, a big good coach, because the game's constantly changing and you constantly have to adapt to what's changing or how it's evolving. It's like, that's what's important for us as people that watch from home. It's like, this stuff worked in the past. Just because it worked in the past doesn't mean it works now. Maybe the days off helps out. Maybe that keeps guys fresh. Maybe that's a good thing to do. And that could be again, then give David Bell credit, because he's been doing that for a couple seasons now. And if it's helping this offense hit and it's helping him out, then it's working. Good for him. Again, credit David Bell. What else I like is, again, we talk about him shaking the line, about making all these changes, all this analytical play. It's like, there's 2 ends of that. You can there's 2 perspectives of all this. It could be, you can play the perspective, well, you got these guys playing on a position and changing their position up. It kind of hurts the defense, whatever. I like it. Again, the game's evolving. Again, you think about the past and how big it is and how crucial it can be at times to want a pinch hitter, substitute guy, or an injury pops up and you don't have anybody take his place. But you see what the Reds are doing, moving guys around from the infield to the outfield, spot inside, moving them around inside the infield, shortstop, third base, whatever. Give them some time at first, give them time at left field. What it's doing is, because these guys are so young, it's giving them experience, it's giving them innings, it's giving them time at these positions, and they're only going to get better. Again, we have to remember, it's like, the Reds are in this position with the pitching right now. It's like, they weren't expecting to win with this young team this season. So you can't be too upset about that. But you think, they're 4 or 5 years of control of these players. They're only going to get better from a rookie standpoint that they're on. So you get to year 2, you get to year 3, and all of a sudden these guys, the defense starts to clean up a little bit, and they're fluid, and they're fluid at these positions. So it gives you all the flexibility in the world to move guys around. And I think that's, again, you love it. You know, the good comparison to this is the Bengals and how they draft. You know, they've been drafting players defensively that are versatile. They can play multiple positions. They can be put in multiple different schemes. And you know, the baseball version, that's kind of that concept. There's a lot of value to have players like that on your team. Again, I like that he's been willing to try that. He's not stuck on saying you have to play this position. This is your position. So again, credit David Bell. But let's talk about what has, again, some people upset. I've been upset with him in the past about it. You know, there's things that are like, is he costing this team in a lot of games and situations? And I think one thing it's really important for us all to remember, we're sitting on the couch watching a baseball game. It is so easy to micromanage. It's so easy to walk in with a pessimistic attitude, which is what it is a lot of the times. It's a pessimistic, negative attitude. Let's call it what it is. When we're constantly looking at reasons David Bell's struggling, that's an us problem. It is really easy to see that. Anytime something doesn't go well, I'd be like, I would have done this. Or anytime the lineup's not great, I would have done this. And like, David Bell lost us because of this, or he brought this guy in when he shouldn't have, or he took this guy out when he shouldn't have. You know, I think a good example of, you know, both ends of the spectrum here is, well, Newman. There was so much uproar and so much dissatisfaction about David Bell starting Newman there for a long time. I didn't look. I couldn't get you the exact statistics how he's been in the last week or so. But during that time when there was so much, you know, uproar against why is Newman playing? We got all these other young guys. Understandably so. We all want to see the young guys play and flourish. Newman was the best hitter on the team. The guy was batting 400 over the last couple. He was tearing the cover off the baseball. He deserved to play. Obviously, if you had one game where he went over 3 or over 4, it became really easy to say, see, that's why David Bell should be fired. It's like, no, give him a little credit. If you want the best players out there, your best chance to win, if a guy is tearing the cover off the ball like Newman was, you want him to play. But the flip side of that is, you know, you want to go the other side of the spectrum. You know, we just brought it up. Joey Votto had 3 home runs this week. Every single one of them clutch situations. He took the lead, the RBIs, the 2 RBIs he had to get that base knock late in the game to get the Reds the lead on a base hit. Playing like the Joey Votto of old to an extent. And you yank your veteran, your future Hall of Famer out of the baseball game after 1 at bat in the biggest series in a while for the Reds, if you want to consider from a matchup and a competition standpoint. You yank him out of the game. Later in that game, you put in Alexi Diaz in the 8th inning. Alexi Diaz, who, again, now there's 2 sides to this story. You get the left side that says, hey, you put in Alexi Diaz because you want your best pitcher out there right now. You need to get out of this inning to keep the game close. It was a 2-run game. You want to keep the game close. You didn't expect him to walk in a batter. You put him in to keep the game close. The opposite side of that is, though, is understanding, watched enough baseball in my life now to realize that closers are not closers in A, tie baseball games, or B, in games they're losing. And when I say they're not closers, I mean it's a different feel. They typically, I'd like to see the statistics. I would be willing to put good money on it. On average, a closer's ERA is substantially higher in situations they get put in a game that's not an unsafe situation. So I do think that's important to consider. But the other situation here is there was the reports not that long ago. Was it a week ago? A week and a half ago? Why wasn't Alexi Diaz in there getting a save? Because he said he was tired. If your closer is tired, understandably so, the Reds have been winning a lot of baseball games. Why would you be putting him in a game you are losing when you could go and play a day or 2 later, or maybe 2 of the next 3 games where you need him in there when you are winning? Do you have a better chance to win a baseball game with Alexi Diaz on the mound in a 1-run game in the bottom of the 9th, or do you have a better chance to win the baseball game with Alexi Diaz on the mound in a 2-run deficit in the 8th? So from that perspective, see, you know, that's the kind of thing. It's like those are the managerial decisions that worry you and that concern you. I think we can look back though and say, hey, look at Dusty Baker. He did go win himself a World Series. I think he was an excellent players manager. He brought the best out of his players. And the reason he got ran out of town out of Cincinnati was, again, because of his on-the-field managerial decisions. Make no mistake about it. And this is probably why the Giants won 3 World Series in 6 years. Because Bochy was a heck of a manager. He outmanaged Dusty Baker up and down that field. And you look now, he really started a trend, if you will, where he was like, go ahead and yank out them starters in the third inning or something if you have to. You know, that he said that's going to work. That's how we're going to win World Series. And that's the thing where you really have to consider what's more important, getting to the playoffs or having a manager and a team put together that can win games successfully and go deep in the playoffs. Because that is where a manager, especially in baseball, can make a difference. And you have to wonder how much of that is David Bell affecting. Overall, it's really hard to tell right now. I think one of the situations with David Bell, a lot of things, the things you hear about the supporters is, hey, well, it's not his fault. They gave him a bad team his first year or two. It's like, well, they brought in guys twice for him. They had a playoff team. They had a legitimate team where, again, the bullpen struggled. But every year there's always an excuse. Oh, it's the bullpen. This year, it's the starting pitchers. No question about it. It's very hard to coach a team into a successful season when your pitching rotation has been doing as poorly as the Reds has. It's been beaten up as bad as it has injury-wise. But at the same time, I mean, hey, if you had an excellent pitching staff, an excellent bullpen, and an excellent batting lineup, I could manage that team to a playoff team. You know, you can't. There's gonna be a weakness in a team, and as a manager, it's like that's where you kind of try to figure things out, try to navigate, do what you got to do. Obviously, his hands are tied with the starters right now, but we've seen in seasons past where it wasn't tied, and it felt like those other situations where there was kind of getting hurt. You know, if you wanted to play, you know, we can bring up Shogo Akiyama. We've seen him here very little, but he was better than half that batting lineup was there for a good while. And he never got to play from an average standpoint. So it's like there's situations like that. And you kind of have to, I don't know. I'm so in the middle with David Bell right now. I'm open to seeing what he's got to do, I guess, at this point to end the season, give him a chance to see what he's got to do. But I can't forget about the past, and I can't forget about some of the decisions he still makes now. But you have to give this guy credit for what he has done from an offensive standpoint. You know, there's in baseball don't feel as obvious, I guess, but you got your offensive coaches, you got your defensive minded coaches, you got your balance coaches. And David Bell, for the most part, feels like he could be the way his bats have been, the way his team's been from a resiliency standpoint. It seems like he's the kind of coach that, at the very least, he instills confidence in his team to say, never give up. You're never out of a game. Because again, like I said, second time in 3 years that this has been one of the most resilient bunches you see in baseball and in Reds history, as far as offenses being able to come back from games and never being out of games. So you have to give him a lot of credit there. I love you guys' thoughts, though. I mean, are we pro David Bell? Are we say, let's see what he can do to finish out this season? Let's see what happens when Hunter Green and Lodolo come back. They got a starting rotate, come some starters. Or is it ride him out for a while? This guy deserves an extension. Or are we saying, let's get him out the door? Love to hear the thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.